Glory to Jesus Christ. Glory forever. Father Jason here. On the one-year anniversary of the Ukraine-Russia war, I wanted to speak very briefly on this topic. A year ago at this time, I was somewhere over the ocean on my way from here in the United States to Ukraine. We landed in Poland, and so much has happened since then. It reminds me of a saying, as I think on this past year. It reminds me of a saying from the Desert Fathers in the 4th century with Abba Pombo. He was a 4th century ascetic in Egypt, and he went to the major city of Alexandria, and there he encountered a prostitute, and he began to weep, and his followers asked him, Abba Pombo, why are you weeping? And he said, first, I weep for this woman and her loss, and secondly, I weep for myself, that I do not have as much concern for God as she has for evil men. Here in the West, what started off as a moral, religious issue, this is a clear case of this war of between good and evil, has now devolved into a political situation whereby people choose the country they're going to support based upon political allegiance. And my fellow conservatives tend to fall along the lines of supporting Russia for reasons that are rooted in ignorance. I say ignorance because Russia's history is not like our own, and the tools we use to interpret our own history are not the same tools that we can use to interpret Russia's history. I think of them in this way, that whereas in days past they should have had their full trust in God, that now they seem to place their trust in the seeming strong man of Vladimir Putin. I weep over that. They should seek to put as much trust in God as they do in strong men who purport to offer them security, identity, the return of tradition and values. And all of this is what we would call a marketing ploy. The same thing was employed by Stalin. You know, Stalin was the one who in 1936 and 1941 changed three things in the Soviet Union. He turned over the abortion law. He criminalized abortion. He also began to impose a tax on couples who had no children. And he also instituted freedom of the churches. These three things are traditionally now seen as being conservative. Now, he didn't believe in freedom of churches. He didn't believe that life was inviolate. He didn't believe in, the God's commandment to be fruitful and multiply. But he did these things out of sheer desperation for his country to survive. His country needed to survive because of the huge loss of numbers from all of the calamities from the time of the Revolution, but especially from the Second World War. And he needed numbers. He needed babies. And he saw the math of it. What we have here with Russia today is the exact same thing. Mr. Putin is not interested in the gospel of life, and therefore he goes out and pushes back against the abortion agenda. I applaud him for wanting to, restrict abortions, make them more difficult to access. But what's the rationale? It's the same, I suspect, as Stalin's, simply to get more people to build the empire. And people don't see this. They see this simply as a gospel motivation. All of this, my friends, was predicted in 2006 by Mark Stein in his book, America Alone. Back then, he said, in 2006, he said that Russia will have no choice but to invade its neighbors or to disappear. Why? Because it was facing a demographic nightmare through high HIV rates, through high abortion rates, through high alcohol rates, through low life expectancy, through brain drain to the west of their best and brightest. Russia had no future. And he said way back then in 2006 that Russia will invade its neighbors. Now, Russia isn't going to propose it as a demographic war. It's going to propose themselves. They're going to propose themselves as the victims in all this. and they will use the language of the gospel, as Stalin did when he needed to open the churches to reinvigorate a fatigued nation. The same thing is being built and employed today. So, my friends, those of my fellow believers who are traditional as I am, I urge you, do not fall for this ploy. Do not think that Russia is interested in religious freedom. Ask my Catholic priest friends who've had to flee from there about the freedom of Catholics in Russia. It's on life support. And we Greek Catholics, Eastern Rite Catholics, were banned from existence there. Imagine if America banned Orthodoxy. The outrage. Well, Russia's banned Eastern Catholics, and it's been that way since the beginning. The freedom has been there supposedly since the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991. Not one Greek Catholic church has been legally registered. So this is the country that my fellow Catholics and traditionalists are supporting, and it's disconcerting. And I wish and I hope and I pray that you will put as much trust in God as you do in this false strongman who goes about murdering the innocent in Ukraine. God bless you.